Okay, so we're at 12:33 and we're going to call the policy meeting to order. I'd like to apologize for a little bit of the late start for the public that may be joining us. And like to start by acknowledging that we are privileged to meet on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish and St'át'imc nations. With that, there is an agenda recommendation. The agenda of this meeting be approved. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Rachel. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then we have a minute recommendation.
That the minutes of the policy committee meeting held on February 14th, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Lisa. Second for that. Thank you, Cynthia. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then we can continue. Have trustee. Are there any trustee items? Okay, seeing and hearing none. No presentations, information items, the 5-year policy review schedule. Danielle?
Yeah, thank you. So there's been a few changes since we last met. For the anti-racism and accessibility policies, they've been moved from March to April. And we moved the planning for district facilities policy 801 and the disposal or acquisition of land or improvements policy 802 from April to March. So we've just kind of swapped some policies there. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that about the schedule.
Little minor changes to the schedule. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Requests for a new policy to provide provisions to staff to take leave to serve in public office. Celeste, I see your name's there.
Yeah, thank you for putting this on the agenda. So essentially what I'm proposing is that we create policy that would allow any employee and I'm just going to broadly share ideas. I don't know exactly what policy might look like, but the provincial government and the federal government both have policy that allow, or law for them, that allow for paid leave to participate in public office. And so what I'm proposing is the creation of a policy for any staff member that may want to run for office, something like 90 days for the purpose of running, and then maybe up to 5 years if you're elected. Beyond that, you would have to choose between remaining an employee or continuing serving full-time in public office. There may also be instances where it might not be a full-time job, where the person could remain as a 0.4, for example, working for the school district and serving for the municipality, one of the municipalities within this region. And so I would just welcome any other discussion from the board. I think this is really important. This is about supporting engagement in politics. And I think we have many capable staff members that, given the opportunity, may help to improve things within our communities if they can test out the waters of doing this work and while maintaining their status as employees, unpaid.
Okay, anyone have any questions or discussion? Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I can add some discussion to that. I think it's actually a pretty decent idea to have a review of the other levels of government's policy and see if we can implement something. Even if it's a reduction of hours for somebody, as Celeste just mentioned, these positions are hard enough to get people to entertain applying. April and myself were acclaimed, and if opportunities were available to others, it made it easier and took away some of those barriers for people to apply for public office. With the guarantee that, oh my gosh, if this really isn't my cup of tea and doesn't fill my bucket, I still have something to go back to. I've been a valued member of the school board community, and I want to test something else out and expand my knowledge base. I don't think it would hurt to have a look at creating a policy to support people in a different capacity of further education for themselves and public service.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Cynthia? And then April.
Thanks so much. The two things jumped into the front of my mind when I thought about this for the amount of time we've been discussing it. The first thing is, when we let people leave their position of work in our environment, we have to pay someone else to come into that position. So with that, how much of an added cost would that be? No? But what about the TOC? Like if a teacher left, we have to pay for a TOC to come in. Okay, we can check. Okay, so I might not know what I'm talking about in this case, but that came into my mind, is that it would be an additional cost because we'd have to cover the person who's leaving. And then the other thing that popped into my mind is, I don't know what the implications would be across the union if one district is allowing this to happen and other districts are not. So those are the two thoughts I had.
Okay, I don't think the intent was,
It doesn't have to be a conversation, just thoughts.
yeah, but I don't think the intent was that they would be paid leave. So they would be unpaid while they're off. So any TTOC would be covered. So that would balance out in itself. Can Chris jump in on the union piece for a second, April, to answer that part?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, well, again, I think I just want to share and I appreciate the question, but I will share that we do have collective agreements with our employees, and leave provisions are covered under the collective agreement. And I can share with you that there's a working doc that's fully available already between BCPC, which is the BC Employees Association, and Kootenay District, where they were looking to, for those exactly the sorts of leaves that Celeste was bringing up. And that's still a white paper that hasn't been resolved. So we can certainly look into it on your behalf, but I would say that I will posit that this is a collective agreement conversation, and boards do not supersede collective agreements, and leave provisions are bargaining matter. And to your point about how it would affect other districts, my suspicion would be this would become a provincial bargaining. And again, I am certainly not opposed to these kinds of leaves. I think Celeste, you raised a really important point, but I believe it's beyond the power of this board to impose that. Leave provisions are not at the local board
And
table, nor at the local bargaining table. That's BCTF.
And having sat in bargaining with SSTA and with CUPE, it has never come up as an ask. So I won that piece. April, and then Celeste, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, Chris just said it. That's exactly what I was
Oh.
going to say. This is a leap of absence, and it can never be in policy, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's a bargaining thing. And I also would agree with Chris that if we wouldn't even be able to bargain it at the local level. So.
Okay. Celeste?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wasn't aware that this was being talked about bargaining tables, Chris, so, but
No
I'll
worries.
just say, I think that could be bargained, but I don't think it has to be. I think that it's something that organizations can, there are other unionized organizations, like I said, the provincial government in British Columbia has provisions for this that are not through a collective agreement. The federal government, again, like I can send you links. This is on the public service website. This is not something that is going to be unique. Other organizations are already doing this, and this is about valuing serving in public office within our communities and supporting that. We have employees within this organization who could add value to our communities by having the opportunity to serve in public office. And there's already way too few people that want to step up and do that work. And it's about us saying we value this and we want to make this possible for people in our communities.
And I don't hear anyone in this room disagreeing with you in that piece. We're just seeing what our, what's within our purview. Melissa?
Would this be something that if you were going to sit down with the union and speak, would it be something that we would do or something that we would approach BCSDA to do on our behalf for all of them?
You want to have that answer?
If I may, would it be prudent to have a motion to have it invested? I'm not too sure what the correct process is. Would it be prudent to have a motion to have it investigated? If it is something that we are interested in and do support, what the best way to get that message across is within the layers of organization.
Well, we do have an opportunity at AGM to ask questions of the MLAs. So maybe that's a good question to put forward. Say, has this been considered? I do know that several years ago, we had so this is CUPE, but we had a bus driver in Pemberton run for trustee. And during the campaign period and election period, she did take leave. She was off from her job. But she was, if successful, she was going to have to leave her job. So.
That would fall under personal leave.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
again, I'm happy to, again, if the board wishes, I'm happy to ask our director of HR to reach out to BCPC. See what their opinion is, and then go from there. If folks want to then raise it at BCSTA, that's absolutely fine. I'm just sharing what I know about leave provisions. And again, I'm certainly not opposed.
No, and not at all, and neither am I.
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation.
Yeah. Cynthia?
We can do that.
Okay, Celeste, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to what Melissa had said. This is something that can be addressed through policy. It doesn't have to be done through bargaining. So I just make that clear and really impress it upon the board. I'm not talking about anything that needs to be run by a union. This is about us as an organization. And yes, Chris is correct. You know, investigation would need to be done with BCPC to ensure there's no issues. But above and beyond that, I'm pretty sure that we can create policy that spells out leave provisions. Yes, you know, someone cannot be an employee of this organization and serve on the board, but they might be an employee of this organization and serve on council, right? They might be an employee of this organization and then go and be, you know, serve provincially or federally. Totally possible, right? There are capable people here who could serve the community in that way. And I just want to take down the barriers to doing that because it's such important work.
Okay, does anyone have anything new to add? Maybe we'll start next steps. Chris, you start with asking those questions.
Certainly.
And again, a reminder to everyone else that this is something that, you know, we could be talking to other districts at AGM. It's a perfect opportunity and to follow through on those questions and see what other districts are doing. Hey, Celeste, is that good with you that we move on?
Yeah, thanks so much, Rebecca.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so next up we have policy 301, emergency preparedness. Chris Nicholson.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that and ask Ian to jump in if necessary. So full disclosure, I want to share, you'll note that it's pretty bare. We've had the agreement before that if it was housekeeping, minor things like colons and periods and whatnot, we could just go in and fix. So I want to share that this was fixed. If you saw the original, there'd be about 189 small changes in terms of where semicolons are, and that's just a disagreement with how things are laid out. Full disclosure. So I did go in earlier and clean it up, and I'm sorry I didn't keep track, which is why you don't have the original one. So that's on me. So I hope it reads really clear. Emergency preparedness is a common policy across all districts, of course, that have some pretty similar language. So that's why there isn't a lot of change. You'll note that in 2020, it was the last time we looked at it, there was the change in April. And I think that was just to do, if I remember correctly, we had to get the acronyms correct because the sector has moved to be aligned with police, fire, emergency services, et cetera. So you'll note, for example, in 1.3.3, we speak about the District Emergency Operations Center, the SDEOC. And again, that's just to ensure that we're in line with other emergency services and the admin procedures. So what staff does to implement this is full of those acronyms. That again, happy to share, but not really necessary from the board point of view. The other change, though, I did want to bring people's attention to was 2.3.5. And it was just sort of in my mind, happy to leave it in, but felt it was a little bit of a redundancy because this is about emergency preparedness. This notion, and it does happen that the OH&S safety committee for each school does this as part of their role every year. So it's not really about emergency preparedness per se. So I think it just might be confusing to the public. How come we're not talking about the school safety committee? What does it mean about potential exterior hazards? That's a year-to-year thing that OH&S does. So I didn't necessarily think it needed to be included. Happy to keep it there. But again, from a governance point of view, I hope this reads relatively clear. I will share that we are this close finally to getting these new flip charts and printed and in every single classroom. And the flip charts are just in an emergency. You don't have to look to policy. You don't have to go and find the red binder. It's other districts use it as well. Super effective. It's on a classroom wall, easily grabbed. Something happens that fall under these emergencies. You grab it, you know exactly what to do. Even though we also have an app, and I'm very excited that we have access to that app in the event cell phones go down, etc. We're trying to make response to emergency as seamless as possible. Of course, we do our drills every year, but we all know in the moment of a real emergency, things can happen, and the access to that flip chart is going to be super helpful. So again, from a board point of view, policy governance point of view, didn't feel the need to make many changes. Nothing's changed from the ministry in terms of what has to be here. I just hope that it reads better for the public, really. But again, always open to suggestions for improvements.
Ian's stolen my when I was reading through it, I noticed that under 1.5.2, it says employees and students will practice those procedures. And I kind of went, well, how many times, when, what? And I was wondering if it could be maybe added as reference in 2.3.6, where it lists actually what that emergency drills will be held 9 times per year, blah, blah, blah.
So just have it further and just have it twice, or have it closer to the beginning?
As reference then, because I just, the question popped up immediately, like, oh, well, when and how many, and that's just me.
Yep. No, again, each time we look at this, folks are going to see different things. If we can improve it, we missed it in 2020. Why? Yeah, I have no problem with that. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, and then Celeste.
Yep. So I had a couple. That was one of mine on my list. I past life, I was the director of emergency services. So I've got a couple here. Should we be mentioning that we also work with local, municipal, and First Nation governments where necessary? Because sometimes municipalities will apply for the local state of emergency first, and then it snowballs and impacts around. So I noticed that there isn't anything about the local governments that we are working within. Also 2.1, should we be mentioning EA or clerical staff member? Because it seems kind of exclusionary, seems like we're excluding some staff in 2.1. Potentially, we've got principal, vice principal, custodian, and or teacher and or parent / guardian. So I just thought we might want to broaden that employee capacity so that we're being inclusive of all staff members. And I also had in there, are we striking 2.3.5 as that's a function of the OH and S committees? 5, I had a notation for
Sorry, I just have, I can't keep up.
Yeah.
It's too many.
oh, so sorry.
Can I go one at a time?
I always get
Yeah,
lost there
certainly.
too.
Certainly.
Okay, so the first comment, I think you were talking about municipal
Municipal and First
or
Nation.
first
Local
Well,
government.
Yeah.
local government, but does not local government take, I just want to make sure it's not already covered. I don't recall seeing
it-
local government in other provincial.
And it may not be, Chris, but I know from past experience, like for example, Lions Bay, emergency services within Lions Bay, we had permission to get into the school before the school even gave us those permissions. Like it was utilized as our, sometimes you want to say it or don't want to say it, but it was utilized one of the storage capacity spaces in the event that we needed place for the coroner to come, right? So the local governments, when they declare a state of emergency, they're usually the first ones. So like we've got in here that the province does it and that you have the capacity to declare it for the school, but usually it's the local government that provides that first disclosure for a local state of emergency. Like you look at when the Porto rock slide occurred or other such things, it's the local government that does it. And then those organizations within the local government, so be it the schools, they then take guidance from what the local government does to the province, and then the PEP funding comes in from the province, right?
Yeah,
So-
I don't know, Lisa. I might have to look into that. Maybe I defer to Ian because this policy was 2016, 2020, 2020. It's never come up. Because when for example, Village of Pemberton declared a state of emergency because of the flooding near the school, they have no jurisdiction. Like we watch and converse and realize where our schools are located. We don't defer to the Village of Pemberton to tell us if we can open the school or not. So I'm not sure about that piece. I haven't heard that before. Ian, I'm curious because I know Ian's operations and is usually our commander in this situation.
Yeah, well,
I hear what you're saying though, but I'm just not sure for this policy, that's how it works.
with some of our partner municipalities, we have arrangements with them. We would use schools as emergency command.
Mhm.
There we go. So, yeah, so we have an agreement in place, say with the RMOW to access schools in the municipality as emergency response centers already. But we do determine ourselves whether or not our schools are open and ready to receive students. You know, given what the emergency is, and we have to follow any of the restrictions placed, say on access if roads are limited and things like that. But yeah, the recent flooding, local state of emergency in Pemberton didn't affect our access to schools. It didn't trigger anything within our organization to operate differently during that period. We continued to run as normal. Is that the question? Or?
Do you know what, on that, sorry, Lisa, I'm actually going to back up because I'm rereading what it says in policy, and maybe I'm actually going to say, I think I understand your point now. There's no issue with adding in the event that the municipal, provincial, right? Because it says the superintendent still has the authority. So I'm sorry. I jumped the gun there, and yes, I hear you, and I have no opposition to adding, because we do when they did declare the emergency, I had the authority to determine whether we were going to keep the school open or not, and of course we did. So
Yeah. And
yes,
I
thank
would
you.
think that you take that point from the local governments that you work within, and that information flows from usually local government first, and then provincial, and then federal. So
Yeah.
that's usually the point of contact and order of how things occur. So I just want us to make sure that we're honoring those partners that we do have. I mean, across the board, and just adding local, municipal, or First Nation governments where appropriate. So does that help with the first one?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And then 2.1, just adding a more broad scope of our employee base on these committees, rather than it just seeming like, oh, we just need, like, with it, we value everybody. And it's inclusionary. That's my comment there. If that.
So I
is
would,
okay.
I'm happy to change the custodian to maybe a CUPE member, because that's the inclusionary part, because
Yeah.
we're not, we won't do clerical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's often been custodian because they have the keys and access to the building, but there's no reason potentially why it couldn't be. Ian, do you see any issues with it being CUPE? No. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and
And
if
it did
it's
say
the-
suggested members.
Yeah, and it's if it's a clerical staff member, like, we all know how invaluable the secretary of the school is in knowing how things roll out in the school, right? Like, where are the lists? What's our like all the ratio stuff.
I think,
Thank you.
so I think he's agreed with you already.
Yeah.
In the interest
Oh,
of
good.
time, if we can move on.
Yep, I've just got the one more. So if we
You're
scroll
killing
down-
it.
I do my homework, sir. So under 5, expectations for the school board office, I would also just like to note that we as trustees should be we share that space as well. So with the board office plan and regulations, in the event that something occurs during our time in the building, we should probably be included in one of those drills and see what the plan is.
Sure, we can certainly invite, we can do that as part of a board lunch or whatever, and just show you how we.
One day when we have all trustees in the room.
Yeah.
I mean,
You don't have to be here.
Yeah, so it's good for all of us to practice what we have in policy, I think. So that was my, those were my comments on that. Sorry, Celeste and Rebecca, for dragging that along.
For what?
Or making that lengthy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, was that everything, Lisa?
That was all mine. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And Celeste, your hand was up?
Yeah, I've just emailed this to you, Chris. So my only comment was on 2.1, and this is echoing what Lisa said. It sounds like the intent was to say something along the lines of members should include the principal or vice principal of the school, a CUPE member, an SSTA member, and a parent or guardian kind of thing. But do what you want with that. That's it.
Agreed. Thank you. That's great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Anyone else? Lisa, your hand's still up? Okay. Thank you. Cynthia?
I only saw one thing that I wondered if you wanted to make a minor adjustment to, and it was under it's under 1.3.1. And in the past, we've kind of struck lists, and I wonder if we want to just leave it as an obvious natural or man-made disaster has occurred, and then not list.
So stop at occurred.
Yeah, because then I thought, we didn't add flood, and then I thought, we didn't add something else. And then I thought, well, maybe we just don't need a list.
And is there a better term for human caused? I should change that too. Just in the interest of doing gender neutrality here, right? Human
Maybe
caused.
just natural or unnatural.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that leaves it broad.
But we still need it says pandemic as well. You might want to leave.
Maybe leave pandemic because that's unique. I don't know. That's so unique.
I'm open, but is the board, are people wanting the list gone or include flood to make it more inclusive? I'm open, it doesn't bother me.
I'm open also. It's just a suggestion.
Okay. Keep going. Thank you.
Just take up the whole thing, but an obvious development. Doesn't need to have an actual amendment, just get an obvious, just an obvious development. Who cares if it's snapping an actual building?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
obviously that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this? Okay. So I don't think we're quite ready for a motion on this.
Oh,
one.
I would ask that with
Yeah,
recommendations as provided. Yeah, I think they're pretty.
you
fine.
can clean it
Oh,
up.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my ask. Can vote it down.
So do we need to put a motion in here? Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, then we'll move on to policy 801, planning to district facilities, Danielle and Ian.
I'm gonna start. Okay. So I think here we just changed all the shalls to will. And we added some representation to the advisory committee. So we added First Nations representative and then also a student representative for the planning for district facilities. And then I think we just cleared up for 2.5, we just cleared up the wording a bit to make it clear that that a trustee would be chairing the planning and advisory committee and an election would have to be done for what trustee would represent or would be the chair for that. And we just cleared up too that the committee would be dissolved via board motion, similar to what we did with our early learning committee a few months ago. So it was mostly just housekeeping and just a little bit of clarification. So just anybody have any feedback on 801?
This one looked good. Thank you.
Go ahead, Celeste.
Yeah, I just had a couple comments on this one. So for 2.3, I was wondering if we should specify, it says may include, should include, like, is one or two of these people okay? Does it have to be all of them? That kind of thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's doesn't sit well with me either, or
The name?
no, just the zone trustees, that part of it. Because
Yeah, I have.
we
that
talk
too.
about, we represent the entire district,
Mhm.
and we act on behalf of the entire district. But now we're saying that, okay, if there's a school in Squamish, then therefore it's only the Squamish and area D
That's
that we
true.
would expect there.
Yeah,
That's
it was zoned before, but we're not opposed to just having trustees.
Just two trustees.
Trustees. Yeah.
Yeah,
Then we can
agreed.
get rid of the S, because that was in case it was area D, for example, there's one, so. It would be that trustee if we were in keeping with the zones, but if folks are happy with two trustees period across the board, I think that's great.
Does that capture it for you, Celeste?
Yeah, for sure. Capture is one of the things. Secretary treasurer, one principal, maybe stating the number and then one staff representative and then the number of First Nations reps from the territory on which, fine, one or two or whatever. I just think like have a number, but then also you have to like take away the may in the first part of this section
Sure.
because it should be like you need to have representation from all of these different groups in order to do the work. So I think that may is really problematic. Can I keep going?
Yep.
Yes.
So two,
Cynthia was just saying she thought maybe it should be shall, and I think it should stay at should because we could have somebody that might not be able to attend, or
Yeah.
we might not be able to get somebody to.
Yeah, that's
you
what I
know,
was
so,
thinking as
yeah.
well.
So that's why.
Mhm.
So go ahead. Sorry.
or should normally include kind of thing, like to make the intent clear,
Mhm.
but give room for those absences for sure. Okay, 2.4, should the number of student and community reps all be prescribed, or like for all of these people? So it says 2 parent reps, and then so how many student reps, like 1 or 2, how many community reps, how many local government reps? And then this 2.4.5 is very long, and I think it could just say rep, you know, like, and however many of them you want. Why do we need the membership of the planning advisory committee piece there? It's all, that's what we're talking about. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah. Good point.
You with me?
I'm with you.
Can I keep going?
Yes.
I think,
Well, may I just ask
Oh.
for clarification? Are you, what's yours or what is the board in terms of the numbers? Do you want
Like 1.
2? Do you want 1? Like, if we're gonna put numbers down, let's be clear and let's sort that now, because they're easy fixes.
I think that staff is capable of choosing an appropriate number, and what Danielle said about the previous section should is maybe a word that, you know, or should normally, because we may be able to get people for all of these reps, but you know, we should normally have 2 parents maybe and like 1 student or whatever is reasonable in the eyes of staff.
Thank you.
or up to? Up to
Yeah.
2?
Yeah, could be.
April, did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, an exact comment on that. I just think maybe what Celeste is looking for, and certainly what I'm thinking, is it needs to be consistent, because in some places we have a number and in
Yeah.
some places we just have an S.
Yeah.
So I think
Clean that up.
yeah, it just needs to be consistent.
Yeah. Cynthia, was yours on this as well?
Oh, no, I think that's.
Or are you just waving?
Um,
Go ahead,
Rebecca,
Celeste.
I
Yeah.
like the up to, because if we go up to 3, then in the event that somebody can't attend, it doesn't stop the work of the committee.
Totally.
So if we go up to 3, and then if all 3 show up, fantastic. And if they're not able to, then it's okay because we still have representation.
For which?
For
So-
which are you talking?
When you say representation be included on the committee, 2 parent representatives, up to 2 or up to 4 representatives, or whatever number you guys feel is the maximum amount of humans you would want there. And then when and if those people have COVID or they're sick or their kids are doing something, like if they're unable to attend that meeting, you're likely still going to get the 1 you really need.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go with Celeste on this and let's let staff determine that. My initial inkling would be to say that trying to have up to 3 of all of these would just create its own issues. If suddenly you've got 20 people in the room kind of idea.
Right.
They're far too many. So, you still waving over there, Cynthia?
I just have a curious question. If you put numbers like assigned to these roles, and then if those numbers don't present at the meeting, does that affect having quorum at a meeting and then being able to do the business of them?
You'd have to create a terms of reference.
We have, yes.
Okay.
For the,
So all
the
committees,
committee.
yeah, so you'd be able to, and I appreciate Celeste's point about the should.
Yeah.
That provides some wiggle room if you don't have the
Yeah.
2, that if we determine it's 2. If you don't have 2 that show up, you said we should have 2.
Should have
So you
that.
still name it,
Yeah.
and then in terms of reference would decide quorum, but again. Yeah,
Okay,
it's advised.
do you have what you need for that piece? Yeah. Okay, Celeste, did you have more?
Yeah, sorry, I have just one more if you don't mind
Yeah,
on
go ahead.
2.6. And so this is a bit picky maybe, but will be dissolved when, you know, like I think in another policy, it says something like it'll be dissolved when the work of the committee is complete. So, but that's a bit nitpicky. I just thought
No,
if-
that's great. Thanks. No, it's funny, we actually Danielle and team did a great job, and then they brought that to me and said, should we have when the work of the committee is complete, and I said, well, isn't it obvious in the statement? But I can see that actually it isn't. So I'm gonna go with Danielle's initial suggestion, which is yours, which is to include that, and we'll just ensure that we do that on all.
I think that was you were right.
Yes, it was.
Thanks, Chris.
Great. Thanks, Les.
Okay, anything else on that policy 801? Seeing and hearing none, then we can move on to policy 802, disposal of or acquisition of lands or improvements.
Okay, yeah, this,
Danielle and me.
yes, this one didn't have too many changes. So for this one, it was mostly just housekeeping. In 2.1, we just updated, there was 2 ministerial orders. So we just added the 1. And we actually just added in that under 2.1.1 that the board may only in exceptional circumstances consider permanently disposing of school property, and that's directly from the ministry policy. So, and then we also linked the ministerial policy in 2.2.4. And I just cleaned up some of the wording there. So, I'm not sure if everybody had a chance to read this, but this is really important information that everybody should be aware of. So basically for school property, if you are going to be disposing of it, you can only transfer lands without ministerial approval if it's for educational purposes already. So with a Francophone school district or another school district. Otherwise, everything has to go up for public tender, and it has to be done transparently. So it's really important for everybody to be aware of that process. I think Lisa, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just had a couple if you're ready for them. So 2.1.1, I had a question regarding what constitutes the exceptional circumstance. For example, would the Pemberton House still fit within that exceptional circumstance?
So for that would be, you would have to go through all of the things under 2.2.2. And if none of those, like if you made sure that you can't use that to supplement enrollment growth, it can't be used for alternative community use, like all of those things you've already had community input. I think if it doesn't fall under those things, then you can consider it. But if it can be used for school purposes in any way, like you have to follow all of those things before it can be
Which we
disposed.
did.
Which you did. Yeah,
Yes.
We went through all of that, the function of that particular piece of property you're referring to.
Yep.
Didn't allow for all the other usages, and we had to support that with evidence.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to make sure that the policy that we've written hasn't negated something we've already done in the past. So, and then 2.2
ministry guarantee anyway.
Yeah, we need
Approval?
ministerial approval. Like there's so many
So we
steps.
did have approval.
Yeah, so there's a lot of steps
Long time.
we did have to follow for this.
Same with the Coast Mountain Outdoor School.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yours.
So we had ministry approval on those.
Perfect. So 2.2.2C, I'm just wondering if the school respond to the board's plans for the school. Should that not say space and be consistent with the other language that we're using? Because it might not be a school at the time that it's being
Right.
disposed.
That's a good point. Yeah, it could be just a piece of land.
Yeah,
So-
so I thought that kind of restricted us
Good
to it
catch.
just being a school.
Yeah, nice
Yes,
catch.
yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you very much.
So I'm wondering if it should say adequate opportunity for the community to respond to the school board's plans. Just leave it like that.
Yeah, that would satisfy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll say I recognize that I do recognize where some semicolons that I think we put for periods, maybe didn't make it in, so just know, Celeste, that I noticed those pieces too. Not to everybody's attention to it, but there's a couple places where semicolons should be periods. And yeah, so I've got them.
Those were my only 2 points. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Celeste and then April.
Thank you. My concern with this one was on 2.1.1 as well. I wonder, just based on the discussion that we've just had, I wonder if saying something along the lines of the board may only with ministry approval or something like that, the exceptional circumstances, like it's not defined. And my exact comment was, what if another construction project, like who's going to come and say you've violated your own policy because nobody can agree on what exceptional circumstances actually means. There's more to it. So in that situation, we obtain ministry approval to divest ourselves of this thing. And I feel like that particular sentence is problematic, and it could be perhaps, Danielle would likely have the wording to describe what we need to do to get rid of property in the correct way.
Yeah.
Get rid of.
Yeah, because that's not necessarily need ministerial approval if it's being given to another school district. So I'll have to think about that.
To clean it up, yeah.
It's just to strike out the exceptional circumstances. I think that leaves too much room for interpretation. I really think that that's a problematic phrase.
Yeah. Take it out. The whole thing.
But if you're
Yeah,
getting
I
this
think it does
language-
leave it wide open when you say exceptional circumstance, like who gets to define what an exceptional circumstance is?
And may I, but if the language, if this has been taken from the language in the School Act, should we not? Yeah,
It's from the
so,
ministry policy.
It says that in there?
Yes.
yeah, and that's what my concern is when I'm discussing it, because if it's already come from the Act, well, to me, I think the exact same way as the rest of you, like exceptional circumstances, it's a bit vague, like it, anyway. Do as we need.
Sorry, Rebecca, can I?
Yeah.
The one way to solve this is to maybe cite the document that it's coming from, like, or is it the M8823? Is that the one?
No, it's just coming directly from this ministry policy.
Yeah, like does it change anything for anybody if it's just removed? Like, does it really need to be in here? Because ministry policy then might change, and you know what I mean? Like, it's there, it dictates what we can and cannot do, but it doesn't, like, is there any value added by having it in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we do, I think I agree with Celeste, because 2.1 does say we're doing it in accordance with the Act.
Mhm.
And I think we can link to those orders. And then if we just take out if we just remove it, we still got, it says accordance with the Act, which 2.1.1 is, and then 2.1.2 and 2.1.3 tell us when we don't need ministry approval. So the other one, you have to have ministry approval.
Mhm.
So I don't see an issue with removing 2.1.1 either.
Okay.
I think it reads, it's covered.
Maybe that's why we didn't even have it in the first place.
Then, oh, you added it. There we go.
Well, one of those we added in one time. The next one you remove it, and
Yeah.
That's right.
So if folks are okay with it, I would revert it back and not include it. I agree with Celeste.
You good with that, Ian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Okay.
don't see any disagreement in the room. Anything else, Celeste?
No, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, is this where we put the emotions in? So we'll just give her, Archie, a sec to type it in.
That the policy committee recommend the Board of Education approve policy 301, emergency preparedness, policy 801, planning for district facilities, and policy 802, disposal or acquisition of land or improvements with changes as discussed.
Thank you, Lisa. Second for that. Thank you, Rachel. Any opposition? Okay, seeing and hearing none, that's carried. Now, how many questions do our public have?
Don't think they have any. but I will just double check. Okay.
No questions of clarification from the public. So with that, we have completed the business of the agenda and at 1:24 are adjourned. So we're due back at 2:15 for committee of the whole, and we can't speed that up because it's an open meeting.